Welcome to the 7th episode in a Legendarium series about the life and reign of Edward Longshanks. In Part 7, The English Caesar, we will talk about how King Edward Longshanks of England completed his conquest of Wales. After generations of on-again, off-again warfare with the Norman rulers of England, the Welsh united under Llewellyn Far in the year 1194. Llewellyn and his armies drove the English from North Wales by 1212 and even reversed the trend of Norman expansion by taking the English town of Shrewsbury in 1215. During his long reign, which lasted until 1240, Llewellyn resisted several attempts at re-invasion by King Henry III of England, father of Edward Longshanks. Following his death, Llewellyn was succeeded by his son Dafydd and then his grandson Llewellyn II ap Gruffydd in 1246. In the year 1277, King Edward Longshanks of England swept through northern Wales, imposing a harsh peace upon his western neighbor. Yet he still sought allies in Wales, including Dafydd, the brother of Llewellyn ap Gruffydd. Indeed, Longshanks welcomed him into his circle and allowed him to marry Eleanor de Montfort in a ceremony where Longshanks himself gave away the bride. Yet both Dafydd and Llewellyn still had grievances against King Edward. After all, Longshanks officials in Wales doled out Welsh land to English settlers. Both brothers turned their personal complaints into a larger condemnation of English rule in Wales. Indeed, the average Welshman found English law horrifying. In England, thieves and troublemakers went to the gallows. In Wales, on the other hand, they had to pay fines. English critics saw this as a sign of Welsh barbarism, as it gave some a license to steal in their eyes. Of course, the Welsh pointed out that fines ensured that families would keep their own members in line. On Palm Sunday, 1282, Dafydd turned his coat. He appeared at Hawarden Castle, a 40-foot stone keep on top of a rounded motte. In the dead of night, Dafydd led a band of men in storming the castle, seizing King Edward's ally Roger Clifford from his bed and slitting the throats of his men as they slept. Prince Llewellyn had declared war. Over the next few days, Welsh rebels tricked and seized English officials, enforcing English laws across Wales. The so-called Peace of 1277 vanished overnight. Once more, King Edward brought in soldiers and engineers. They pushed through the Welsh countryside, financed by large loans from Italy's great banking families. Teams of Chester carpenters built a giant bridge that linked Anglesey Island to the mainland using 40 pontoon boats. Once more, the Cinque Ports provided ships, and the Marcher lords carried out private engagements in the south of Wales. King Edward I tried to buy off Llewellyn, offering him an English earldom in exchange for his power base in Snowdonia. Llewellyn refused. Snowdonia provided pasture land fabled for its richness, said to be capable of supporting all the herds of Britain by itself, and it also represented the core of Welsh nationhood. Valiant Welsh fighters won a great victory at Anglesey, ambushing Edward's Gascon supporter Luke de Tawny at the pontoon bridge. He and his supporters sank into the ocean, weighed down by their heavy plate armor. Yet Edward Longshanks fought into the winter, bringing in hundreds of conscripts from Gascony. Llewellyn, fearing starvation as Edward encircled his power base of Snowdonia, made a desperate sortie, from his hideaway. In turn, Edward's men ambushed Llewellyn at Urfon Bridge in the Central Marches on December 11th, 1282. An English knight ran him through with a lance before cutting his head off. Llewellyn's death became the final blow to Welsh independence, struck on a frozen hillside surrounded by bare trees only days before Christmas. None of Llewellyn's brothers or brothers-in-arms had the charisma or strength of the last Welsh Prince of Wales. Why did Longshanks win so completely? The few pitched battles of the campaign showcased the ferocity and courage of Welsh tribal warriors, yet pitched battles tended to be a rarity in medieval warfare. Rather, victory went to the side able to starve their enemies out of castles and fortified towns. Edward had money and logistics on his side. And when Edward Longshanks got his hands on Dafydd, whom he regarded as a traitor for breaking his oath, he ordered him hauled to a scaffold and hanged. Before he died, Dafydd's executioners removed his innards from his body with a butcher's blade and burned them in front of his fading eyes. They then chopped his body into quarters, sent his limbs to the four corners of Britain, and put his head on a spike at London Bridge. Having buried Wales' greatest war captains, Edward intended to see that Welsh independence remained in the ground. King Edward marked his Welsh campaign by building some of Europe's grandest castles. For 7 months out of the year, when the ground thawed enough to build, work crews felled and leveled woodland, cut and dragged stone, and stocked furnaces. Endless streams of carts came with giant logs and timber cut from faraway forests. New roads appeared as armies of laborers and tradesmen came and went. Mounds of rubbish and filth surrounded construction sites. The scale of the buildings left no doubt in the minds of the Welsh about who their new rulers were. Masons from Italy, under the watchful eye of Master Mason James of St. George, designed and detailed the grand castles of Flint, Rhuddlan, Bluith, and Aberystwyth. Master James met Edward in Italy after Prince Edward finished up his role in the Crusades. Master James also knew the best experts across Europe and had experience building castles in dangerous alpine passes. Longshanks personally corresponded with Master James about the positioning of towers and moats, the details of gateposts, types of timber and stone to be used, and even the location of latrines. One Welsh poet described the castles as the magnificent badges of our subjugation. In some cases, Longshanks builders used stone from old Roman forts, conferring the legacy of the emperors upon England's own Caesar. Yet King Edward recognized Welsh strength. He immediately recruited several corps of Welsh longbowmen and brought massed archery into English warfare. This provided his armies with a means to defeat the Scots in the 1290s, and his successors with the means to annihilate French chivalry during the 100 Years' War. In spring 1284, Queen Eleanor came to Carnarvon Castle, where she gave birth to her 16th child. She and Edward had 6 surviving children, 5 girls and a boy named Alfonso, named after his maternal grandfather in Castile. 8 other children had died in infancy. Her new son, born on April 25th, 1284, was named Edward after his father, and only 6 months later, 10-year-old Alfonso died, and little Edward became heir to his father's throne. Longshanks would bestow upon his heir the title Prince of Wales, making Wales part of the Plantagenet family legacy. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.